Welcome to another week of live trading. This is for the month of March. First trade of the week was the MRSN. I'll admit it's not the best looking daily there. Had a huge sell off on Friday already and gapped down again today. So I usually like to wait for the 5 minute in these cases, but it had a pretty looking 123 on the 1 minute. So it was definitely aggressive. So I decided to try it with half size to possibly add on later if it sets up, which it did as it formed a 123 on the 2 minute, and the 5 minute is now completed. So I was planning to add to it under the low of the day, but it popped instead, stopping me out for a loss on my front half. Then the banks were selling off big time again this morning, and I noticed the FHN was starting to go parabolic here. Like that, it attempted to bounce and made new lows, then set up a reversal bar with a volume spike, so tried it over the 2 minute as a counter trend play with the stop being low of the day. Was a bit undersized, but I took half as it hit the 1 minute declining 20, which was probably early as the 5 minute definitely looked like it bottomed there, but just didn't trust the banks this morning. It hit 2 Rs at one point, only to trail out as the 2 minute 20 MA caught up, which was my second target. Then WGS, which is a penny stock, had a sell setup with a tight base, shorted it under the base, got filled what I could, and it had a nice breakdown for a quick scalp lower. And I guess good exit on that FHN because it looks like it made new lows. Yeah, the banks were just not looking good this morning. And then the BKKT going parabolic as well, but to the upside. For climactics, this is the kind of intraday picture I like to see. What would have been the cherry on top is if the daily was also on an uptrend. But we are popping into the daily 20, also the 200 on the hourly with resistance above. Nice big bar plus volume on the intraday, so I tried it under the 2 minute reversal bar, and it was on an uptick, so I got a partial fill only. Got to target one pretty much immediately, which is always nice when that happens, and I just ended up taking it, and then got back in some shares under the 15, which is pretty much where I got out initially, and ended up trailing it a bit too early on the second drop as it pretty much started to collapse. Again, if that daily was just on an uptrend, I think I would have been more comfortable holding for larger targets. Then I scalped the MPLN, which was not a gap, just a sell setup on the daily and trying to break the dollar mark on the intraday. Broke down for a quick scalp. Then the Bird, which was on my carryover list from Friday, was also a scalp as it broke down on the hourly base, making new lows, and ended the first day up 4 Rs. Then Taco Tuesday, my first trade was AIMD, gapping up on some news today. Back above over the 200 on the daily and back over the dollar mark as well. Only issue is that it averages very little volume. Now I normally like to wait for at least the first minute bar to close before trying anything, but the level 2 looked interesting on it, so I jumped in it a bit early, only to flip on me and forcing me to kill the trade for a loss right out of the gate. Slow start to the morning as I couldn't get anything going until I came across the BuzzFeed. Gapped down on earnings today and failing on the attempt to bottom on the hourly, and was penny basing for a breakdown on the intraday. Shorted it for a nice breakdown. Then I saw the AMC selling off hard and coming in hot, so I looked for a quick scalp on the bounce over the 1 minute bottoming tail as volume kicked in for a dead cat bounce. Then I shorted the IBRX, similar to that BuzzFeed from earlier, down on the daily, trying to bottom on the hourly, but this just buried the gap today. It also had a penny base, so I shorted it as it broke that base for a quick scalp short. Then I saw the NRGV going climactic, so I was watching for a flip. But then I noticed that it was stuck at $2, the whole number, and looked like it wanted to break on the level 2. So instead, I decided to scalp it short as it broke, catching some of the acceleration move lower. Then I scalped the DCFC, which was also penny basing and stair stepping lower on the hourly. It took all afternoon to just move an inch, so was pretty much stuck to the desk, but made a few cents out of it and called it a day. Wednesday, my first trade was the VCSA. This gapped down on earnings into support, but broke through it off the morning sell-off. Missed the initial 1, 2, 3, 4 at the open, but gave a sell setup on the 1 minute. Now it did come in a good amount already, so I wasn't expecting a home run play out of it, but tried it as a 1, 2, 3 on the 15-minute setup and just targeted to retest the low of the day. Now, once it hit my target, I changed my mind to just take half because it stair stepped lower into it with not much volume kicking in. So wasn't sensing much exhaustion and looked like it wanted to continue lower. But unfortunately, it didn't pan out and ended up popping instead, and the spread also opened up, so I gave back some profit. Then I scalped the IBRX from yesterday, staying weak off of yesterday's buried gap, looking like it wants to make new lows on the daily, and with the sell setup on the hourly triggering, I scalped it short as a 1, 2, 3, 4 on the 15-minute. Then I went back to the VCSA to try it as a long this time because it looked like it bottomed for the morning. And we're getting a volume spike, so it looked interesting over the hourly bar, but ended up failing, giving back pretty much everything I made on it. Now back to the IBRX, I reshorted it as it stayed weak and was up $1,000 at the bottom here, but ended up flipping pretty hard on me. Thankfully, I didn't get hurt on it, but I also ended up not making anything on it. So not too happy to be giving back some profits here. Then went back again to the VCSA to try it as a long one more time off the 15-minute 123. Not the best spot into that declining 20, but it did look like it finally bottomed for the day. Ended up breaking out off that hourly base and made some of the profits back, and that was the day. Thursday, my first trade was the TBLT, gap down on earnings, taking out not only the daily base, but also that big green bar from yesterday. So definitely some buyers trapped this morning. Shorted it as a 123 on the 1 minute, but unfortunately didn't fill me. It gave me 73 shares out of the 7,000 I wanted. And look at that drop. Unfortunately, it's not going to make anything, so I just ended up killing the 73 shares I had and moved on to ESPR, which was a mega gap this morning. Could go either way. I actually tried it as a long first, but didn't work. And once it set up a base breakdown, I just scalped what I could get filled since I wasn't sure how much it would drop, given the big gap off the recent sell-off already. Then I went after the HNST, one of my favorite gaps this morning, clearing a long-term base after failing to rally higher. Didn't do anything with it at the open since it got bought and was only interested as a short. So when it came back in and started to base at the lows, I shorted it on the breakdown. Ended up using the safer stop just because it dropped a good amount from the top, so didn't want to get shaken out of it. Either way, the uptick undersized me again. Tried to add to it on the 123 off the 2 minute, but 0 shares filled and trailed most of the shares at target and kept the small piece as a runner off the 1 minute. And I also scalped the AMRS as a long, which was bullying the gap, so caught some of the pop. Then Tyson woke up and wanted to say hi and good morning to me and you that's watching on YouTube. Then slowed down until the afternoon where I ended up just doing a couple of scalps. One was the IBRX, which I've been trading on and off all week, and followed through some as a long. And then the GOS, which wasn't moving much at all, but made a few cents out of it as a stair step lower. Wanted one more penny out of it, but had to kill it into the last seconds here since the market was closing, and that was the day. Friday was St. Paddy's Day. If you watched my last video, you already know how I did. But first trade, I shorted the bull, gap down breaking the daily uptrend, taking out support and also trapping some buyers from the day before. I shorted it under the 2 minute low high, but didn't expect the spread to open up big time. So while I was letting that play out, I was also trying to short the blind as a breakdown on the 1 minute. Ended up only getting filled like 3,000-4,000 shares, but had a really nice drop and I got a really good fill on the exit for a quick 2R profit, but took a small loss as I trailed out of the bull. Then the Hub C, which gapped up off a 123 on the daily, now trying to close the gap. Tried the buy setup off the 2 minute, which had a nice base. Took it when it popped into my target, which was just high of the day. Wish I kept the runner because it continued much higher, but not a fan of really trading high volatile stocks like this one. Then I reshorted the blind as a breakdown off the 5 minute this time as it stayed weak, which worked. Then I shorted the QRTEA, which is a penny stock. This thing has been getting sold off all month, failing to bounce and making new lows. Tried it on the breakdown on the intraday for a scalp, which also worked. I covered it off when I got the drop plus volume spike and looked like it bottomed, so I flipped it long here. But the bounce didn't work as well as I was expecting, but still made some money off of it. And then Acer, which became a penny stock off a big gap this morning off some news, shorted it off the base breakdown and behaved nicely as it stair stepped lower and covered it into the close and called it a week. So there you have it, another week of live trading in the books, ending the week up over 16K. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. As always, I appreciate you for being here, and I hope to see you on the next one.